Welcome to Hope in the Halls, Christian voices from Washington, D.C., sponsored by Hope to the Hill, also sponsored by Can We Pray, with your hosts Nathan and Amber Kistler. Learn more about Hope to the Hill at www.hopetothehill.com.
Welcome back, everybody. We're back down to one episode a week right now.
Well, I would say a lot has happened in our country and
in our lives. So we've had a lot going on, and obviously you've had doctor's appointments and things as well that we've been going to.
Yeah.
So just trying to get everything back, hopefully normal soon. But today we want to talk about something with a very heavy heart. Obviously, everybody in the world knows what's going on right now.
Yeah. In
Israel, and we had a lot of friends. Obviously, Dr. Roller and his wife were supposed to be leaving in a few days.
Yeah, and the Museum of the Bible and Kirk Cameron were all going to be on that trip in about, now it would have been 4 days. Yep. But obviously that is not going to happen.
No.
Because of everything that is going on.
Our pastor was supposed to leave today with a group from our church.
I know. And I just believe it's the Lord protecting them, from all of that right now, from going over there. Unfortunately, there were people that were over there visiting who are stuck right now. I just heard a report this morning from some friends of ours who have people who went on a trip over there and they can't get back because there's no flights.
Yeah.
And so they're I think the U.S. is trying to figure out a way to get those people home who are just tourists who had gone to visit Jerusalem and Bethlehem and places like that. And so they're trying to get them back to the U.S. now. There are some of them who have gotten home, like the ones, I think, like the day the war started, those people got on a plane quickly and came home. It's the ones that were there after that were flying in.
Yeah,
and
we
Tel
had
Aviv.
Some groups that I know of that had landed the morning of.
Can you imagine?
Well, I mean, yes and no, because it's interesting. I guess over the years, I've been, between 9 and 11 times, quite a few times, and there have been skirmishes on the in the West Bank over the years.
But it's never been quite like this.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is you would normally, when there was a skirmish or rockets that had been fired from Gaza, you would never even know in Jerusalem or even in Tel Aviv. You would never hear anything while you were there about it unless you watched the American media or foreign media. That they're so used to that type of thing in Israel that it's just kind of is what it is. The Iron Dome typically catches them. So, agreed. This is a very different instance.
But this time they overwhelmed the Iron Dome, which is kind of what caused it. They were firing rockets from many different places, and it overwhelmed the Iron Dome, which means that there had to be a lot of rockets to overwhelm the Iron Dome.
Yeah, over 5,000 one day. So, stepping back a little bit, and I remember this, my first year in working in D.C. In 2008 was the beginning of Obama's presidency. And I remember back then there was a lot of conversation, 2008, 2009, and 2010. There was a lot of conversation about Israel at that point. And a lot of pressure was put on Israel to give the West Bank back to the Palestinians. Mm. And interestingly enough, we're seeing the consequences of that now, because Israel, there were two pieces of land at that point that they wanted Israel to give back to different places or to give to different countries. One was the West Bank. The other was the Golan Heights, which is on the very top of Israel, just below Syria. There's this kind of no man's land that the UN actually has a peacekeeping force. You can drive up there. They used to call it Tanks Road. During the 6-Day War, there's an amazing story, and I think I've told you this story before, but it's there's a man named Eli Cohn that was a very wealthy businessman that actually worked for the Israelis in their kind of CIA in their whole world, and he was set up in Syria, in Damascus, and he had been very much involved in business there, so much so that they trusted him. He was undercover. And when when Israel was planning to go in years in advance, a long time, he encouraged the Syrians to plant a specific type of tree in this area, up in the Golan Heights. And it was that was actually how the Israelis, their pilots, were able to know where to bomb during the 6 Day War. It's actually what helped them win the 6 Day War. Eli Cohen was hung publicly in Damascus after the 6 Day War. They knew that. He died to help Israel, his people, get back the Holy Land, essentially. And from that point on to today, there has been pressure for the Israelis to give up that area. And that was the one part they refused, because it would give the Syrians or whoever the upper hand, the mountaintops, to try to fire rockets into Jerusalem or wherever. So they did give the West Bank, or pieces of it, gave it to the Palestinians, which I think now, looking back, for most people, they would say that was a mistake, a very, very bad deal for the Israelis. But the Golan Heights have stayed in their control. The question that everybody's asking at this point is, how do you miss such a huge security breach? I mean, the Israelis they're the best in the world, really. I mean, next to the American security apparatus. They are unbelievable at their job. How did they miss this? And time will tell. But God help these poor people that lived on the edge of the Israeli border there. I mean, today, babies that they found.
Yeah. There's over 40 of them so far that they found that were...
Some of them were decapitated.
I mean, it's just... You
can't even wrap your mind around that.
That's horrendous. You almost feel like you cannot have a soul if you are able to do that.
Yeah.
These are not people that can be, in my opinion, you can't negotiate with someone who can do that. And that's what there are some members who are calling for negotiations for peace, but you cannot negotiate with people who are terrorists. People who can behead a child, a baby, an infant. That is pure evil.
Yeah.
That is evil. And I'm sorry, we don't negotiate with the devil. I don't negotiate with Satan, and that is his work, and that cannot be negotiated with. And I just think it's really sad. It's really, really sad. And even more on our countryside, we're without a speaker right now. We were talking about how important that is.
Yeah.
If something were to happen in our country, we are without a Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is not good right now. I mean, just to put it into perspective and call it what it is, it's not good. And I know that today they're going to start talking about who that might be.
That debate is happening as we speak.
And that's going to be very interesting to find out, because I know we talked about, just who we thought it could be. And then now there's kind of been maybe a curveball thrown from a speech that was made the other night that maybe it could be someone else again.
Maybe. I think we said it just the other day, if you listen to the last episode, that I think time will be very much more kind to Kevin McCarthy than people realize.
Yeah.
And as we look back, history will reflect, I think, differently than 8 members of Congress would like it to be. Perhaps not. But I can say either way, no matter who steps into the role, we need someone with great leadership at this moment to help facilitate the Congress doing what the Congress needs to do, and that is to help our long-standing ally, our oldest ally in that region, which is the Israelis. And Amber, we talked. We were supposed to originally be on this trip with Museum of the Bible.
Yeah, we were originally.
And because of our IVF and all of that just didn't work out this year. But,
no.
Obviously, it's not working out for anybody that was going to go on that trip.
Well, and it wasn't just that. We have Gaither dates as well.
That's right.
That we were a part of.
Your whole family was actually supposed to be on that trip with us. But, I think it's important to recognize something to that a lot of people, you're going to have people on both sides of this issue that are pushing one or the other. And so hear me out when I say this. Some of my closest friends in the Middle East and in Israel are Arabs.
Yeah.
Arabs that some of them are Muslim, some of them are non-practicing Muslim. And I will say on both sides, some of the most kind, I've met some of the most wonderful Israeli people who are unbelievably kind. And I've met Arab folks and Muslims that are unbelievably hospitable and kind, that just want to live in peace. There are people there are people in Gaza that want to live in peace, that are now going to be facing the repercussions of terrorists, Hamas and others that didn't ask for this. Some of these folks that are just wanting to live their lives the best they can. And my heart breaks for all of them, for the Israelis who have lost family members, Americans that we have found out, at least 12 or 13 at this point. And also many Arab folks that are losing children, that are losing their own lives. This war across the board is an ugly thing. And it breaks my heart for all of these people. Yet I understand that Israel is going to have to do what they have to do at this point. But I don't relish the fact that anyone on either side, you can be compassionate to both sides of the plights of both sides and understand what Israel is having to do right now. And so more than ever, we need to be praying for these folks. Chaplain Black called me this morning, Senate Chaplain of the United States, and he was checking on you, actually. But I told him, I said, Chaplain, I'm praying for you today. Amber and I both are, with the wisdom you're going to have to give to senators on these issues. And his response was very interesting. He said, Nathan, we need to pray for the Jewish people and the Palestinians that have lost and are going to lose their lives through this the longer it goes.
Yeah.
This is a very difficult situation. And he said, we need to be praying and fasting over this, that it ends quickly, because lots of life will be lost. And he's right. He's very right. And so we need to be praying for the people that are making the decisions in our government today and over the next few days, and maybe even, skip a meal or two and fast over this issue. This is horrific, the things that are coming out, and we probably haven't even heard the worst.
No, I don't think so. Do we know, just to put it into perspective even more, how far they have gotten into Israel, like where exactly they are? I mean, because I had friends asking, are they in Jerusalem? No. They haven't gotten to Jerusalem.
No. So as far as the ground incursion,
I know that they have started attacking the southern and the northern border.
So those are just rockets, though, as far as that have been fired, and
not by land, but by air.
Correct.
With rockets.
So basically, if you look at Gaza, and if you're looking at the map of Israel, Gaza and the West Bank area is at the bottom left corner of the country. And so there's a sliver of Israel's border there, which they put settlers over the last 15 years. They've encouraged, and that's what's so sad, they've encouraged people to go and move there. They've tried to create friendship and all of that on that border. And so these terrorists flew what do they call them? Paracopters or whatever. We watch that guy on YouTube a lot that has he has basically a backpack with a propeller on it and a wing that they were flying, and they had a guy sitting in the front with a machine gun, and they flew over into that area. So they, at that point, I would say maybe not even 10 miles into Israel max.
And we say all this because it's so easy, and it is horrible what's going on there, but we don't want to over dramatize something,
right?
Because there's a lot of people that get on the news, the media, and Facebook or wherever it might be, anybody that feels like they are a news outlet these days. And honestly, there's so many of those people on Facebook and social media. And it doesn't mean that this is not bad. And we're not saying that at all. It is bad. But we want to just give straight up facts when we talk about it. We don't want to over dramatize it and say, they're now storming the grounds of Israel, because I know that there's some people that have put that on media outlets that have kind of made it sound that way, to the point where my friends were texting you and I and asking, are they in Israel or in the holy city? I mean, what happens to all of these things in the Bible? Will they destroy these temples and, the tomb? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they haven't gotten there, and all that is safe. We've not heard that from anybody, and we have friends over there that live there.
And members, that are part of foreign affairs that I've talked to over the last couple of days, Homeland Security, guys that, one specific member that has trained, he's a medical doctor or a former medical doctor, and was a special medical doctor in the military, in special forces, that has trained doctors and field physicians in Israel for years. I talked to him. I heard from him early. Like, he texted me at 4:30 this morning. He's an early riser, not like us. But I just happened to be awake for a minute and was responding back to him. And you have to understand, too, for people that haven't been to the Holy Land, we're talking about 120-mile by 70-mile wide country.
Yeah.
Very, very small. So if, to compare it to America, someone coming in 5 or 10 miles into their country is like someone coming from Mexico through the border of Texas and going to, I don't know, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Potentially, right? I mean, that would be the comparison of that.
Right. But I think the problem is that when things like this happen, the conspiracy theorists jump on it.
Sure.
And they cause an uproar to make people believe that there's a little bit more to the story than there is. It's bad enough. Just tell the story.
Right.
And the story speaks for itself. And that's kind of how you and I have always lived our lives. Just tell the story like it is. There's no need to dramatize it or add to it. Truth is the truth.
Yeah.
You don't need to scare people. They're already scared. Yeah. We're already scared in our own country, and it's not happening here. We don't need to add to that. And I think the problem is that when you pay attention to the news so much, or some of these other, conspiracy theorists, I call them that because they are outlets, that it can cause you to spin in this hole that you can't get out of.
Yeah, nosedive down.
It's you just going down to a rabbit hole and you can't find your way out.
Yeah.
And there's certainly a lot of people that have done that and have called us about it, and we're like, listen, either God's in control or he's not at the end of the day. It doesn't mean that it can't happen here, because it certainly can. Obviously, the border is a problem. We don't know who has come through our borders. But at the end of the day, we just have to trust that God has it all under control. And I know that before it gets really, really bad, we're gone. So
yeah,
I'm that's just the hope that I hold on to. And I just know that I have to put my faith and trust in God. Otherwise, I would probably want to sit in my room in a blanket in the dark and watch cartoons all day, because I wouldn't want to live in reality. If I lived my life that way, in fear of constant of just who's coming to get me, do I need to have this weapon prepared for someone who's going to come to my front door? There's people in America that are not terrorists that could walk up to your front door at any minute, and you could be fearful of it.
Right.
But you can't live your life in fear.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting point that you've made, because so often I would say we as conservatives, because we are definitely conservatives.
Definitely.
Have often, I grew up in a culture, and you did too, of conservatism, where everybody was looking for a boogeyman, always. And when one didn't work out, they find the next one, always looking to be afraid of the next thing. And I don't remember who I heard this from, but I was a pastor at one point, and he said, Jesus says, do not fear 365 times, one for every day of the year. So, and the Bible also says, do not worry, but through all things through prayer and supplication, taking, the things that we need to the Lord through prayer.
Now, granted, that is easy preaching and hard living.
It is. But nonetheless, it is still true.
It is.
And I say that to myself. I say that to you, because I have to hear that often. I have to remind myself of that often. But our calling as Christians to live victoriously is to not live in fear and to recognize that, as Chaplain Black, the last thing he said to me today on the phone was, God always works things out for the benefit of his people. And he said, all this is God giving himself a way to shine.
Yeah.
And,
well, you talked about the way we were raised, and just to give my testimony in short, where I grew up in an independent Baptist church, just like you did. We both grew up as independent Baptists. We don't consider ourselves independent Baptists anymore.
Sure.
But we both grew up that way. And we're now Southern Baptist, I guess is what, I don't know. We're Christians. We're believers of the Bible.
This is where it gets interesting. My independent Baptist pastor used to say, and I love this, I still use it today. He said, I'm not anything other than a dependent Baptist because I'm dependent on Jesus.
Exactly.
He said, so that's what I claim. And he was an independent Baptist, right, by trade.
And we went to the church as like 1611, don't go to heaven type, right? Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where we grew up in. But when I remember hearing the plan of salvation for the first time, it was from a youth pastor that I had, and he played. There was this recording that went around when we were growing up, and I'm sure it's older than me. Like even since then, it was probably years before.
The drill, the whole,
yes.
Yeah.
And we were sitting in our youth
80s.
group because we always had our little youth group church service on Wednesday nights. And so like the adults would be in the sanctuary, and then our youth group would be in our own little room on Wednesday nights. And he played this recording of them drilling a hole to the center of the earth, and you could hear screams. And they claimed that they believed that that's where hell was, that it was at the center of the earth. And so I, who had been so like sheltered, watched Disney movies my whole life, everything was rainbows and butterflies, it scared me to my core to hear that. I had never heard anything like that in my life. I had never been told this, these stories of how horrific it was. I had heard about hell. I've been taught the Bible my whole life. And
right.
But to hear that taping, that little recording when you're 13 years old scared me to death. And at the end of it, he used that as a way to ask us if we wanted to give our heart to the Lord. And so I did. I came forward and I gave my heart to God. But when I turned 16 years old, really 16, 17, I was actually about to turn 17, like in the next few days. We had a new youth pastor, Jack Henry, who I absolutely love. He was just one of the, I'm telling you, I don't know that there's a better youth pastor in the world than Jack Henry. He was just, everybody that came to our church always said the same thing. You are so blessed to have Jack Henry because he truly loved on every kid, and he still does. He's a kids pastor still today. But he made an impact in my life, a huge impact. And Jack preached a sermon on a Wednesday night once again. And of course, I'm a little bit older. I have learned more about the Bible at this point. And I'd kind of been just rolling through the motions, with life. It was like, I never want to say that I was, my testimony is a little bit different. I think it's probably kind of like yours. We were never bad kids, like we didn't do horrible things. So like when we got saved, it wasn't necessarily like a huge transformation. You know what I mean? Like, it was, we know that we were bad when we were born. Obviously, we were created with a sinful nature, but at the same time, we weren't some of these testimonies where it's like we have to completely turn because of all the stuff that you were doing wrong. I just had a more of a knowledge of what I shouldn't be doing. And that's kind of where my testimony was from 13 years old. But when I was 16, almost 17, and Jack came into my life, and Angie, his wife, they were some of the biggest mentors. And I'll never forget, Jack preached a sermon on a Wednesday night about being a key. And at that time, we were worship leaders at our church. I was on stage every single time the doors were open for church. And of course, that's where you and I met when we were 13. But we were leading worship. And so I was in front of people all the time. And I'm sure that people assumed that if you're up there, you're probably, saved. And when Jack preached this sermon about how the love of Jesus and how much he loved us in spite of us, and how much he loved us to go die on the cross so that we wouldn't have to go to hell, there was this different message that I had never been told in such a fashion. There was the aspect of love and not fear. And we were talking about fear, and that's what jogged it into my memory. And that night, I truly believe I got born again at 16 and 17. So I've always told people when I was 13, I was scared out of hell. But when I was 16, I was loved into heaven.
Yeah.
And that's always been my testimony. And to know like where that transformation truly happened, I don't know. I mean, I did all the right things at 13 and said all the right things, but the transformation I believe really took place at 16. And so it really taught me a lot about living in fear and what it can do to you and how it can scare people. And I'm worried that there were so many people like me at 13 who were scared out of hell, but I don't know that they really got the message. And if you don't really get the message, do you really have a transformation at that point?
Yeah, I you and I have had this conversation so often. And for me, I mean, I made a profession of faith when I was 5 years old. And I remember vividly, and you know me, I have a really good memory about things normally.
And like an elephant. You never forget.
But I remember my mom always did children's church. You know, my dad was preaching, and anyway, sorry here. And she was doing a flannel graph board thing. And it was amazing. I'll never forget. She put, the Jesus with two thieves on either side of him. And I remember that was the night I went to my parents' room. We were living in that camper back then.
Yeah.
And told them that, I wanted to get saved. I remember the transformation even at that time in my life. But, as a lot of kids, when you get in your teenage years, you can get involved in the wrong things, the wrong people. But
we both did. We both went through that time in our lives.
I rededicated, my life to the Lord. I was 18, maybe 18, 19 years old. But I'll never forget my mentor, Jamie Parsons. I was in Greece and Italy with him. We were on a cruise, and he made a beautiful point about the Apostle Paul. And I'll never forget just the beauty in which, the love of Jesus Christ, Paul talks about that. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you shared, your testimony on here today. But what an opportunity we have as Christians at this point to share Jesus and share the love of Christ. Because while, I believe the Bible is very clear, hell is a very real place, and there's no doubt. What an opportunity that what Jesus did on the cross to save the entire world out of love.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing. And so
I always loved, Jack used to say, if your family and friends were about to run into a burning building and they didn't know it, what would you do?
Yep.
And we were all like, we would chase after them. We would scream at them, whatever we had to do to get them not to go. And he goes, then why are you not doing that when it comes to their eternity? Because it's the same thing.
Right.
And that is really eye-opening when you think about it. But we get so busy, I think, in our daily lives that we kind of tuck that away because we think it's so far away. And then that's why a funeral is so important, right? Because life is but a vapor. It goes so fast. And a funeral is meant to remind us of how quickly life can be taken away. Just last night, there was a horrible wreck in Roopville, which is right next to our house. And you're talking about teenagers who died and were burning inside of a car because they couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And my heart aches for those families because I don't know what their lives were. I don't know if someone reached them. I don't know if they were a part of a church. Maybe they weren't. I hope and pray to God that they were, because they're gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they're spending eternity. But stuff like that shows you death is no respecter of persons nor age.
Yeah.
And even though it seems like we have a lot of time, we don't. And I think this whole thing with Israel brings that to the forefront of everyone's mind who is a believer, because we know the Bible, we know what the end times say, and it shows you that it is closer than it's ever been, and time is running out. And either we're going to do our jobs or we're going to be held accountable for it when we get to heaven if we don't.
Yeah.
And that has been my priority with what we do on the Hill mainly. And I think looking back on my testimony and talking about scaring me out of hell, and I'm not knocking the Independent Baptist at all when I say that. Not at all. I'm still so much a part of the Independent Baptist Church in so many different ways. We love a lot of those people. We just don't go to that church anymore. We go to a Southern Baptist church because that's where it is next to our house. And we love our pastor. But there is a lot of that movement that used, and not just the Independent Baptist, but a lot of it back in the day that used fear to get people saved. And we always called it the numbers game, right? See how many hands you could get raised. And I don't want to do that. I was truly transformed when I heard that there was someone who loved me in spite of me. And I think when we go to the Hill and we meet all these members of Congress and they are dealing with so many things that we will never understand. I mean, our country hanging in the balance in their hands a lot of times. And some of them who have made horrible life decisions, some of them who just are lost, don't know where to go, who to look for answers. You know, during COVID, they were looking for answers everywhere. And thankfully, we were there to be able to say, we know someone who has all the answers. But we do it with love and an open hand and a handshake. And we say, what can we do for you?
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, and that is being the hands and feet of Jesus. And that is not me saying, oh, we're so high and mighty because we do it this way. I say that to say our upbringing helped prepare us for this moment in our lives so that we could be the love of Jesus to people. We have a different perspective because of the way we were raised. We know what did not work for us, and we know what did work for us. And I believe what did work for us works for a lot more people than what didn't work. And so I love being able to walk into a member's office and show the love of Jesus to them and watch them completely transform and open up about their problems, open up about anything that they want prayer for, anything that they feel like their kids need. You know, I mean, all of a sudden they just become comfortable and they're an open book at that point. And we keep all that private. We don't share that with people because we've built these relationships and we don't want to take those for granted or, you know, go out above their privacy. But I just think it's been a cool ride. You know, it's an important time in our lives. And looking back, I've never connected the two, but now, you know, thinking about all this, I've started connecting the two going, okay, God, so you've prepared me for this moment because I did encounter what didn't work and fear did not work. The media tries to instill fear on everybody. It doesn't work. It may in some cases, but in most cases, it doesn't work. But when you show love and you show appreciation and you say, I'm here to help. And I may not can do everything. I may not have the answers, but I do know someone who does. I mean, transformation takes place. It did in my life. It did in your life. We've seen it happen in others' lives. And so we can't live in fear. We just can't because we know the one who holds all the answers. He holds our world in the palm of his hands. He holds Israel, especially in the palm of his hand. And I just believe that he knows everything that's going on. And even though it looks scary, it looks grim. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. Every day right now, we're waking up with a new, news of what's happening over there and what's happening here. And we don't have a speaker and they may be coming over here to have war. There are so many could be's and possibilities. I don't live in that world.
Yeah.
I live in what I know to be true and for a fact. And that is that Jesus has us in the palm of his hand.
I agree. Not much more that could be said to that. And I am so thankful that we have that hope in Jesus. And even in all the difficulty of the day, we can trust that his word is always good when nobody else is. His word is good. So
turn off the news and open the Bible.
Take some time to pray. Pray for our Israeli brothers and sisters, and
pray for the Palestinians.
There are Arabs that love Jesus that we know in that part of the world that are Christians, real believers, that are going through a difficult time as well. And just pray that God would use this moment, however he will, and however he can, that he'll use this moment to bring people to him. And pray for the loss of so many. and pray for peace. I still pray for the peace of Jerusalem. It's what we're called to do. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we pray for that. So
absolutely.
Thanks for spending a few moments with us today. And I know it's been a little bit more of a, hopefully not depressing, but maybe encouragement to you.
It's been encouraging.
And just to see what God's going to do. If you haven't followed the podcast, you can do that on all of the platforms.
Amazon.
Apple Podcasts and Spotify and so on. Google Podcasts. And you can go to hopetothehill.com to find out information about what we do.
And if you don't mind sharing about the podcast, that's how we get, new followers and new people to come along. We try to keep up with it every single week. Some weeks we are a little bit behind where we do one episode. Sometimes it's two if we can get ahead of our schedules. This week has been a little bit different just because of doctor's visits and obviously the recent happenings. We've been trying to communicate with people in DC, but we do hope that we're an encouragement to you every single week, no matter which episode you listen to. We always try to stay encouraging. We don't want to become a Fox News for you or a CNN. You've got enough of that. You don't need that from us.
Yes.
We want to tell you encouraging things and be a light in the dark.
Yes. The darker the night, the brighter the light.
Okay,
as Bill says. Yes. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.